All right, today we're going to talk about two things that you'd probably never ever think belong together: a Tesla and the ancient practice of Dhyana, or deep meditation. It sounds a little out there, I know, but stick with me, because this comparison unlocks a really profound idea.
And I mean it. This isn't just some clever party trick or a fun little analogy. We're going to see how this metaphor actually reveals something incredibly deep about the spiritual journey itself, turning a simple comparison into something genuinely meaningful.
That leads us to the big question we're tackling today. What in the world does a self-driving car, a piece of cutting-edge technology, have to do with the deep inner journey of a Dhyana yogin? How could one possibly explain the other? Well, that's the exact puzzle we're going to solve together.
So, you might be wondering, where did this whole idea even come from? Well, it all started on a very special day, Guru Purnima. It's a day when people traditionally honor their spiritual teachers. But this time, an author named Sundar Rajan decided to offer up something a little different.
Yeah, instead of a typical offering, he presented this very metaphor. And he was super clear that this wasn't meant to be some comforting little story. He said this analogy was designed to, and I quote, jolt you awake. The core idea was that a self-driving Tesla, with lifetimes of charging, is the perfect modern symbol for the path of Dhyana yoga.
Okay, so before we can even touch the spiritual side of this, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about the tech itself. So let's quickly break down the two key Tesla features that make this entire metaphor work.
First up, you've got lifetime charging. The easiest way to think about this is like having a prepaid SIM card for your phone that just never runs out of credit. You buy the car once, and boom, you've got free energy for life. And then there's full self-driving, or FSD. This is basically like having a permanent chauffeur who just happens to be made of software. You just tell the car where you want to go, and it does all the work. The steering, the braking, the navigating, everything.
All right, now that we've got the technology down, let's get to the real story here. See, the initial post from Sundar Rajan just sort of dropped this analogy on everyone. It was a teaser. It was intriguing for sure, but it was also incomplete.
And here's the crucial part. It was a hook. A promise was made that future writings would fulfill the analogy by revealing its ancient proof. But that proof wasn't given, at least not right away. Well, right now, we're going to see that promise fulfilled.
And this is where things get really fascinating. Because to truly understand this ultra-modern metaphor, you can't look in a Tesla owner's manual. Nope, we're going from the 21st century all the way back to ancient wisdom. Because the key that unlocks this entire Tesla analogy, it's hidden in a classic, widely celebrated verse from the Upanishads.
This beautiful, poetic symbol comes from the Mundaka Upanishad, and it describes two birds sitting on the very same tree. One bird is busy, frantically eating the fruits of the tree. Some are sweet, some are bitter. This represents the individual soul, the jiva, caught up in all the actions and consequences of life. But the other bird, it just watches. It's calm, it's totally unaffected. That's the witness, the supreme self.
The mantra itself tells us that the individual soul, kind of lost on that tree, grieves because it feels helpless and confused. But, and this is the key part, when it finally turns and sees the other, that calm, witnessing self, and truly understands its glory, it becomes free from all sorrow. We have to go way, way back in time to a philosophical text that's over 1,000 years old.
We have to turn to the brilliant 8th century sage Śaṅkara, one of the most profound philosophers in Indian history. It turns out he unknowingly provided the blueprint for our 21st century analogy in his commentary on a sacred text from the Upanishads, ancient scriptures that explore the very nature of reality itself.
Specifically, we're digging into his explanation of one of the most famous verses in all the Upanishads, the celebrated two birds on a tree. This isn't just any verse. It's one of the tradition's most evocative poetic symbols. It describes two birds on the same tree. One is totally caught up in eating the fruits, experiencing sorrow, while the other simply watches, calm and majestic.
So, the verse describes the first bird, the soul, as being sunk in grief and delusion. But then, a shift happens. When that soul finally beholds the other, that calm, witnessing self, it is freed from all sorrow. And it's Śaṅkara's commentary that explains exactly how this crucial shift takes place.
And here's what is just absolutely mind-blowing. This entire complex framework, this whole Tesla as meditation idea, was inspired by just 2 sentences from Śaṅkara's massive commentary. Just 2. Think about that for a second. The sheer density of wisdom packed into just a few ancient words is incredible. And it is within those two sentences that all the pieces of the puzzle finally click into place. That initial, provocative idea from Guru Purnima now finds its complete meaning, its full justification, right here in this ancient text.
Now, in his original post, Sundar Rajan promised that he would fulfill this analogy in later articles. Well, that promise is kept right here, by exploring what the great philosopher Adi Śaṅkara had to say about this exact verse. It's deep inside his ancient commentary that we find the missing pieces to complete our very modern metaphor.
This is it. The analogy is about to be truly fulfilled.
And here they are. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the original Sanskrit. Yada tu punaha kadachit aneka janma sanchita shubhakarma phala paripakat kasyachit karuna adi dharma upetasya gurorupadeshat. Yoga margena pashyati.
So what does that actually mean? Well, it describes this amazing moment of perception, but it only happens after two very specific things. First, you need the ripening of good deeds accumulated over many births. And second, you need the instruction of a guru endowed with compassion. You see those two phrases? They're everything. They are the keys that just blow this whole Tesla metaphor wide open.
And just like that, all the puzzle pieces click into place.
So, here's the first direct connection. Remember how the Tesla metaphor specifically mentioned lifetimes of charging? Plural. Well, Śaṅkara writes that this saving vision happens only after, and here's the key phrase, aneka janma sanchita, which means accumulated over many births. This is the lifetime charging. It's the grace, or kripa, that's been earned and accumulated over countless lifetimes, providing the essential energy for the final journey. And the second half of that same sentence gives us the other key. This happens, Śaṅkara says, gurur upadeshat, through the teaching of a guru. But what kind of guru? One who is endowed with karuna, compassion. This is the full self-driving system. It is the guru's compassionate instruction that sets the ultimate goal, that final destination, allowing the journey to unfold automatically on the spiritual path.
Now, look at this. This is where it all comes together so beautifully. Lifetime charging is the energy. That's the grace from many births. Full self-driving is the direction, set by the guru's compassionate teaching. The autopilot path itself is the yoga marga, the guided path of yoga that Śaṅkara mentions. And the final destination? The realization of the self, becoming totally free from sorrow. It's a perfect one-to-one map.
So when you really step back and look at the whole picture, what we have here isn't just some clever little comparison. It's a really powerful way of reimagining a timeless spiritual truth. And this matters because it makes an ancient, profound idea feel accessible and deeply relevant to our modern technological world.
So let's just boil it all down to its absolute essence. Grace, which has been built up over lifetimes, gives you the energy. The guru's compassionate guidance gives you the direction. And when those two forces finally converge, your inner system just takes over. It begins to navigate itself home toward the real self, steady, precise, and effortless.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the ultimate takeaway. The self-driving Tesla becomes not a novelty, but a 21st century rearticulation of an eternal truth, that the path to liberation is powered by grace, directed by wisdom, and culminates in stillness.
So I'll leave you with a final thought to ponder. A Tesla uses this incredibly complex array of cameras, sensors, and software to navigate the outside world. If we just extend that metaphor one last time, what are the inner sensors? What are the guiding principles a meditator uses to navigate their own inner journey toward that same final destination?